All right, we are live and ready to go. I want to say welcome to everyone and thank you so much for being here. This is Pam Green, and I am going to be your host for our live broadcast. And today I have with me, I'm so honored to have Erica Reed. Erica is a psychotherapist and a workplace wellness trainer with well over 20 years of experience in the field. She has her own private practice. She was busy before COVID-19, and she's even busier now. And I'm so glad, Erica, that you've been able to take some time to spend with me. I know that your focus is on helping your clients develop healthy mindsets and behaviors that ultimately lead to greater confidence, more loving relationships. And Lord knows we need more loving relationships right now. And that sense of, personal fulfillment. And this month being a mental health awareness month, the minority mental health awareness month, I think it was so appropriate, the timing of all of this, to have you here. I know you do a lot of keynote speaking, you do a lot of training. And so you are taking a moment from your full plate, from your plate that has turned into a platter, to just give us some insights into how we can do better to be more intentional in how we move forward, developing high performing teams and working effectively in our organization. So welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me. I love this topic. So I really appreciate you allowing me to chat with you about it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you all, when we first connected, we were just talking about, and I said, people are just crazy. And I have to be careful because I just throw that term out there a lot. But I honestly mean it. I've been dealing with some stuff, and you don't even have to be a psychotherapist to know that. But I want to start with that. Because my own personal frame of reference is Frasier. That was my show, back in the 90s, I think. And but can you explain sort of the alphabet soup of your profession? The difference between psychiatrists and therapists and all of that. I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, and it's a really important way for us to start this chat off, because when we're confused, we don't move. So if we see all of these different letters, what does all that mean? And then I don't know, so I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
So just basically, if we remove the letters from people's name and we just look at the profession itself, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who has gone through medical school, and primarily in this day and age, they primarily prescribe medications.
Oh.
So you have some old school ones that will still do a little bit of therapy, counseling, but for the most part, they prescribe medications.
Okay.
So insurance has made it a little bit more practical to have a psychiatric nurse practitioner who also prescribes medications. So if you see someone that's either a psychiatrist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner, they will be focused on the meds. Now, if you're looking for someone for counseling, for therapy, psychotherapy, 3 words all mean exactly the same thing: counseling, therapy, psychotherapy. So you can work with a social worker, who's someone like myself. That's just my degree, is what I've studied in. It's a theoretical perspective to a certain degree. You can work with a psychologist, and their degree is in psychology. And basically, we all do counseling. But if you, for some reason, need to get some type of psychological evaluation, that is only a psychologist. So we have psychiatrists and nurse practitioner there. You have social worker and psychology, and then you have just the psychologist. So therapy, you're good. It doesn't matter the letters so much if you just focus on social worker or psychologist.
Okay. So then when you, how do I okay, so you've given me a wonderful definition, and I'm so appreciative of that. So let's say I'm dealing with some challenges, and I know that you have some statistics maybe that you can share with us. I know the Mental Health Association said there's been a significant uptick since February in the number of visits or people who have made some inquiries around this area of needing help with mental health. Where do we start? What do we do?
Well, the challenge is just the disparity to begin with. This is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and a lot of the statistics really do focus on one population versus the other. Because the same thing we've been facing in the world of mental health based upon race and culture continues today. We're struggling, but we're not seeking out help. I mean, there is such a disparity that, let's say, it's about 21% of whites that will seek assistance for their mental health challenges, their needs, their stress, their anxiety, but only 10% of African Americans will do the same. You know, we have the issues, we have the challenges. We could definitely benefit from that assistance, but we're less likely by 2 times to actually get the help that we need. And it's just continued on during this time of crisis. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, and what's really interesting is I know that the Centers for Disease Control were saying that people of color or African Americans were at a significant risk. That some people in racial and ethnic minority groups are at risk. I mean, in terms of needing, or I'm taking risk in terms of being in crisis, right? And needing some support, and we're just not getting that support, and we're not seeking the support. And I think part of it has been because it's kind of been taboo in our communities. That's not a thing that we do. We keep our business in the house, and we don't share it more broadly. So we've not learned how to share. What thoughts or advice do you have?
Oh, yeah. What happens in his house stays in his house. I think so many of us have heard that.
Yeah.
We had it as a guiding principle. We've taken it into our decision making as we've started our adult lives as well. And that's part of the problem is we become very self-needed, as far as we're going to take care of our own needs, and we're not going to seek out services from someone else. There's just this huge stigma when it comes to mental health. And mental health is the same, if not more important, I would just say from my personal perspective, as physical health. We'll talk about that diabetes, we'll talk about that hypertension, but we don't talk about that stress and that depression and that anxiety, which, by the way, will trigger and make your diabetes and your hypertension that much worse. So there's just this stigma that, only white people have mental health problems. We're strong. Look at everything we've had to endure throughout this life, throughout all of our generations. We can handle this too. And you can, but do you really have to struggle the way that you are? And it's just more so the challenge between the stigma of it's not for us and our faith community, because historically the faith community has said, you don't do that. If there's something wrong with you, you're just not praying hard enough. And
right, you better take it to the Lord.
Yeah, I have a strong connection to my faith.
Yeah.
But there's faith and there's mental health, and no one said they have to be mutually exclusive. We can work them both to get that desired outcome. So it's a challenge that I think keeps a lot of people from getting what they need to be successful, to thrive, and to have, healthy lives and organizations.
Yeah. And you know what? It doesn't mean that, someone can't experience relief or deliverance through their faith experience, because we know, there are a number of documented cases. But I also believe that, God put on earth people to help us with our sicknesses and our diseases. Yes. So I really am more of an advocate now than I have ever been before. I just, wish that I had more education and insight, which we talked about it more earlier in my years. I probably might be a little more sane as a person. Might have been easier to work with. I don't know, or live with. But why do you think, and I know you touched on this, but a little more, why do you think people of color? So, and this is not to say, to folks who are not, that all people of color are crazy, because we're not. It doesn't mean that, that's what's wrong with that person, because there are so many different things that are happening. But why do, I think it's important because it gives insight to talk about how we do need support, both from our employer as well as, seeking support on our own in our community. But why do we experience more long-term effects of mental health?
Well, long-term effects is because that generational thing that we've been going through, you know, the traumas that have been experienced in the African American community, the systemic racism that's taken place from one generation to another, it happens, and it's followed us all from our grandparents to our parents to us, and even now our children, unfortunately.
Yes.
And we've been dealing with all of that stuff on top of, you know, the increased stresses and pressures that we feel in the workplace, and not having the support that we feel we should be getting in a toxic work environment. So all of that, combined with the generational things that we just stay busy, we just keep going, we just keep our head down, we stay strong, and we don't take the time out to pause and reflect to see what's really going on. I ain't got time for that. How many times have we said that? I ain't got
Ooh,
time for that.
t-shirt.
But in this pandemic, guess what? You've been made to hold still. You've got nothing but time to think and feel. And that's why, you know, we see more people having these challenges during the pandemic, because all that long-term stuff that's
Yes.
been building up, you're not distracted anymore. And now it's saying, hey, you didn't pay attention to me before. Now I want you to see what's really going on inside.
Yes. Yes. And I want to invite folks who are watching or listening in, please go ahead and type your questions. We are live. But type in any questions that you might have. I'm not going to be able to answer my email. So if it's something you don't want somebody else to say, I'll give you Erica's contact information, but please feel free to chime in. I see that Shanita and Jennifer have chimed in and said hello. So thank you all for watching and for supporting and participating. But anybody else, you know, please, if you have questions. I want to follow that train of thinking that you have, Erica, because I had someone say to me, they kind of felt like that this Black Lives Matters thing, that we done lost our minds, right? That, you know, something happened. What was the trigger? Pam, I can't figure it out. What happened? And I said, well, it's not what happened, it's what's been happening. And that has gone largely ignored. And we have protested before, right? We've had some unrest before. We've been trying to take them statues down for ages. And so what do you think is different now? Why does it feel just so different for the world that's watching us, specifically here in the United States?
Stuff that's been hidden is now revealed, and we see stuff that we wanted to pretend wasn't there, or that we just stayed busy and we didn't have to pay attention to. So now all of this stuff is just all around us, and we have no choice but to look at it because it's having direct effects on us. You know, there's no reason that Blacks should be more adversely affected by COVID than whites. It's all of this other stuff that we have been dealing with throughout our lives: health challenges, financial challenges, lack of access to resources, health and mental health resources. You know, all of these things, we just have this big old bubble that's now exploded, and everything that was in there is now spilled out, and it doesn't smell too good. And we decided we got to go clean up because we can't live in this space, in this environment, with these beliefs anymore. It's time to do something different. And I think it's just been a keg that's exploded, and now we realize that.
Why do you think so many of our European American friends have been joining in on this?
I think they started to get a little bit of taste of what it may feel like. You know, a lot of times, you know, Blacks have said they feel that their choices are taken away. They're limited in their options of what they have access to. And this pandemic has created that for everyone. So now those who may not have previously experienced it, they're like, oh, so that's what you've been saying. Now I feel how hard this is, or I have a little piece of an understanding. So now I want to lean in and I want to learn more. You know, the other part that brilliantly has happened is where faith comes in, right? Because things happen in the order.
Yeah.
We've been talking more about mental health in more recent times. We've been talking about emotional intelligence. You know, when I'm doing trainings and people are leaning in and saying, I know I need to have this emotional intelligence. And part of that is understanding someone else's perspective, the empathy. So now our non-Black friends are saying, tell me a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you feel. What is that like for you? And that has driven it.
Yeah, it feels like we're all in sort of in the same boat now. And you're right, that empathy, I've heard the word empath more in the last 90 days than I have ever heard in my entire life, right? It's been around. So why are we just now using it? I think it's because people can relate, and we're there, and everyone's trying to find a place, a starting point from which to restart relationships and start and really educate themselves. So I think part of the question has to be, then what do we do? What's next? What are ways that we can manage mental health, all of us, any of us, during this time of crisis?
Well, I mean, part of it has been forced on us already, and that's the pause. Stop trying to fill your day with stuff. Stop trying to we feel success equals busy. Well, I need you to pause. I need you to reflect. Think about what you're feeling. Try to examine your thoughts. And from that, you can decide what you need. You may need to be productive, and that is the driving force. You may need to sit and hold yourself still for a little bit. You may need to disconnect from people. You may need to connect to more people, but you won't know exactly what you need to get through the day, the week, the month, if you're not clear yourself. So really pausing and reflecting and asking yourself those questions, having just really open dialogue and conversations with the people in your life to reduce that stigma. It's interesting whenever I have primarily African-American women as my clients for psychotherapy, and they become like little billboards for therapy. They tell all their friends, girl,
you know what? It is cool to have a therapist now.
Yes.
Say,
I'll have that dialogue to remove the stigma. Talk about what it is. And yes, we grew up watching Frasier, but it ain't that. I got a sofa, but don't lay on it unless you plan on taking a nap. It's just there because it's cute. So it's really about having us understand that therapy is there to have that uninterrupted you time. It's not a place of judgment. The worst thing you can do is have a problem and you go try to talk to your friend about it. And they said, I had that same thing happen to me. And all of a sudden the conversation has switched to them.
Yes.
That's not therapy. That's not what you get with therapy. So really understanding what it is to reduce that stigma. And last thing that I would say is know when to take a step back. It's important to be informed. It's important to be current in everything that's going on. But too much is too much. And understanding you have to limit your exposure to the things that create stress and anxiety for you. Especially before bedtime. Please don't look at that stuff before you go to bed.
Yeah, so cutting it off and having a support system. I'm curious to see, of those who are watching, what are some things that you all are doing to cope during this time? When we first went into this space of, kind of distancing ourselves, and, I love my husband, but initially I didn't know if I loved him anymore. I was just like, dude, I need my space.
Yes.
We walk together. And then I found that was too close. And so then we started walking separate times. I just needed my space. And so he was so kind for Mother's Day, extended some space for me outside on the patio, and had a friend come over and build like a gazebo. So if I needed some extra space, he's like, take your butt outside and get some fresh air. And I know he's praying that this thing can be resolved before the winter, because then I won't be able to get outside. But
that's actually a perfect illustration of it, because you took the time to realize what that feeling was. Why you started looking at him with the stank eye. You started to you had to understand what you needed, and you communicated it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what got you through it.
And we didn't kill each other in the process. We began to really discover who we were and who we are. So I think it is important. Jennifer is saying, that she totally just disconnects. And I think that's important. Like, I don't watch a lot of television. I can't. I just, I don't even want to hear it most times. So if I do, I'm going into veg out mode, or I have to find out about the weather or something. Rachel is saying, hi, thanks for this conversation. After dealing with a toxic environment for over a year, she said, I finally put myself first and started therapy. You go, girl. It has helped. I've been in survival mode for some time. I want to live and not just exist. Thank you so much for sharing that. She said therapy is needed for everyone. Put yourself first. I want better for me so I can be better. Beautiful. That's just beautiful. Erica, what do you say?
I just love that, Rachel, and I'm proud of you, because we have been taught as women, specifically Black women, that our needs come last. We make sure everyone else around us is taken care of. We make sure everyone else, you good, to the point that, you have a party and you haven't sat down and you didn't eat all that food you cooked because you're so busy making sure everyone else is okay. It's okay to fix your plate and to make sure you get your serving size in there. And therapy is that. Therapy is your opportunity to take care of yourself just so you can better serve the people around you. And Rachel, I know that is powerful for you. And I so appreciate your willingness to share how awesome it's been for you.
Yeah, thank you so very much. And I know, Erica, not everyone will be able, I know that you have a full roster of clients, but I still want people to be able to reach out to you. And I know I'm going to put your contact information in the chat for folks here in a second. But what do we do next? Liza, I think Lisa, hopefully I'm saying that right. Put your oxygen mask on first so you can help others. Yeah. I mean, we have to get in the habit of taking care of ourselves. It is okay to take care of myself, and it's okay to say, I'm not okay. Like, I am not okay today. I'm not feeling it. No, and to schedule downtime, for ourselves. But, and I started to ask, what do you, what additional advice do you have for us? What do you think? Let me ask you this. Oh, I'm sorry. What do you think about girlfriend networks? And, like, I have my girlfriends, we have a thing we do every week. And it's very helpful, but I know it's not therapy, but sometimes I do treat them like they're my therapist. But what do you think about those kinds of things? And then I'm gonna shut up and you can talk.
Oh, don't shut up, please. I love this. I think having your sister friends, your girlfriends is key, because it helps you to feel connected. And I will just mention that this pandemic has really been a huge challenge for those who are single, because you don't have connection in your house the way that you did back when you went to work. So having those connections with your friends, especially if you're like-minded, that's amazing, as long as they're not toxic, because we don't want that.
Yeah.
So I love it. And especially if you have, it's great to just chit chat, but we want to make sure it doesn't become a vent complaint session. At some point, we need to switch from the problem to the solution. We need to come up with a game plan. And then if you want to throw some accountability in with your friends, all the better. But if, in addition to that personal connection, I think it's really helpful. I think it's great to connect with a professional and know how to advocate for yourself. If it doesn't feel right, that therapist connection, go find another one. It's okay. This is your life, your journey, and it needs to be fit exactly for you. So your employer more than likely has an EAP benefit program that you signed up for because it's offered back when you signed the initial HR paperwork, and nobody ever talked about it ever again. So check that out. It's free and it's confidential. That's the thing. Therapy is confidential. Your business will never be on the street the same way as if you told girlfriend next door. We can't tell any of your stuff. So that's another benefit. So check out your EAP benefits. If not, check out your health insurance benefits. They're there. You're paying for them. Make good use of them. And just know that it's a process.
Yes. And just a point of clarification, because I get asked this question a lot. EAP, what does that stand for?
Employee assistance program. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
employee
yeah.
assistance program. And normally it's between 5 to 8 free visits that you receive. And even though it's through your employer, I do want to reinforce that even though it's through your employer, they don't know anything that you went or what you talked about.
That is correct. So definitely go. And what you can do is just ask HR or send an email to an HR representative. Do we have an EAP? Just put those initials. And if they don't know what an EAP is, they shouldn't be in HR. But just ask them if they, what's the number to the EAP? And they won't ask you what you need it for. They'll just give you that information. It should be like on an internal employee portal as well. Erica, what questions should we ask when we're interviewing a therapist?
Well, I think once again, being clear about what's important to you, and that may take, you do a little self-reflection. So ahead of time, you may realize or know about yourself that you feel more comfortable with a specific gender.
Yeah.
Only go for that gender. Don't try to talk yourself into something you're not comfortable with. You may feel like only someone of my race or my culture, because those are two different things, will understand or relate. I can relate to them. So be clear about kind of what your search engine is, and then operating from there. But then when you're talking to a therapist on that initial kind of consultation or first appointment, you can ask them questions. You can ask them what their perspective is on therapy, how they kind of structure the time together. If your faith is important to you, ask them how they integrate faith into the therapeutic relationship. So these key things that are important to you, put it on the table. Yeah. And don't waste your time going someplace that is not going to serve you. And that's really important. But obviously, you want to know about the money piece. You don't want to be caught by surprise. So you want to know what your benefits cover. Yes. It's like if you have a copay or deductible, same as if you went to your primary care physician. You want to know all that stuff in advance.
Good. And then I had a question. I wanted to see if anybody else had any questions out there that they wanted to answer, but we're getting a lot of amens and some support. So thank you all for that. What about and this is probably unfair to ask, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What if the insurance company won't pay, or we don't, and we run out of the 6 sessions that we get through our employer assistance program? On average, what can people expect to pay for someone to just, have a couple of sessions just to get started, to say, I can't wait, this is taking too long, or I don't have the support through my employer? What can we expect?
Well, I will say, if your insurance company doesn't pay, then you have some money another kind of way.
Right.
So it is a benefit that you're entitled to. Let's just say for some reason you decide you want to pay out of pocket. And the answer is kind of a wiggly room, because it is dependent upon where you're located. Like New York, you probably are looking like $220 a session, and then maybe Florida, maybe more along the lines of $100. So it depends upon where you are, the cost of living. But generally speaking, I would say it's between $100 to say $300, because California is even more per session.
Yeah. So it could be all over the board. So, it honestly, and I've to say this in corporate, it depends on where you live. But try your best to get this, get the support first through your employer, either through your health insurance. Call your health insurance, that number on the back of that card you carry around, call that number, and then check out what's available through the EAP. There are some additional resources. Obviously, if you really are in distress, call 911.
Yes.
Please do that. The other resource is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline or Lifeline. It's 1-800-273-TALK or 8255. National Domestic Violence Hotline. We're seeing an uptick in domestic violence. We're also seeing an uptick in child abuse and neglect and sexual assault. So, and I would say elder abuse. So there's a National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. National Child Abuse Hotline, 1-800-4 the letter A, child, child. And then there are just so many, but also for veterans, 1-800 is a veterans crisis line, 1-800-273-TALK. 8255. So some of those were some of the same numbers, but we definitely want to make sure that we get the help that we need. As so many of you have already said, we've got to put the mask on ourselves before we can actually help other people. Erica, any additional or final words that you want to share with the folks that are watching?
Well, some of the challenges, and I know that I'm speaking to some leaders as well. So all of this isn't just affecting the personal lives, but it's affecting the professional lives as well. I mean, we were already at a point prior to the pandemic that, people were calling out sick or not going to work or not being productive because they were not in a good space emotionally and mentally. And that's obviously upticked even more. Before it was 60% of absences were caused because of those challenges. And now, I mean, who knows what that is? But organizations, leaders, I really, really need you to know that your people are not doing okay. And what they don't need is more rigidity from you. What will be best serving to the whole organization is more flexibility, more empathy, just leaning in and asking the right questions. I know Pam does an amazing job with her trainings and leadership development. I mean, that is key, helping your leaders understand what are the right questions to ask and what are the wrong questions to ask. But really knowing that your people are having a challenge and asking the questions, how you can best support them during this difficult time. Acknowledging it, don't ignore it, and just hope it goes away.
Absolutely. And, I will tell you, I was talking to, Eric, I think it might've been you. You were telling me this. We were talking and there initially when we were working remotely, there were leaders who have an issue. The employees didn't want to turn their cameras on. And you were sharing with me this revelation. He's like, yeah, well, that's because I could take myself to work. You didn't have to see my socioeconomic condition. If I turn my camera on, you might see how many people live with me or not. You might see maybe some condition of my home that I don't want you to see. Or I might not have certain kinds of things that maybe I have portrayed or maybe projected or you may think about me. And so I want to control the narrative. I want to turn my camera on. And so you were sharing all of these juicy nuggets with me about, oh my gosh. And here I'm telling people, yeah, y'all turn the camera on. We want to see your eyes and see how you're doing. And that is not okay. If they don't want to turn the camera on, I'm not the, domestic hotline. I can't tell if that bruise came from somebody hitting you or you actually did fall out the bed. So we have to just take a step back, take a breather, and just let people be. That was so, I mean, it was just a wake-up call for me to just remember, stop forcing my values, stop forcing things on people working remotely, and rethinking this, how we engage one another in this space.
And don't make assumptions that just because my camera is off, I am lackadaisical, not motivated, and not working.
Right.
Don't make assumptions.
Yeah, just let it go. Suspend judgment. Again, like you said, that emotional intelligence. And in fact, I do have a coach training program that's coming up. One of the things that we teach is the difference between coaching and therapy. And specifically, we focus on you, the coach, developing a listening and a hearing mindset. It is really important to know how to be resourceful to other people. I'm such a huge advocate of, especially HR professionals and business leaders, learning the basics so that you know how to help people, know the right questions, as Erica has been sharing with us, to ask in certain situations. But we also have to have our own resource list. to help individuals get the help that they need. So, let's stop being armchair psychologists. Let's build that resource list. Start with Erica N. Reed at the top. Go to her website. I put it in the chat. It's ericanreed.com. And then her email is info at ericanreed.com. Please reach out to her. I know that she will continue to be a resource to us. And I'm so thankful that you were able to join me for a brief moment today. We don't get a chance to talk like this. So I'm really excited that we're able to share. But what other thoughts would you have? Any closing thoughts or questions or comments you'd like to make?
I think, the larger thing for us to focus on for ourselves is to be gentle, to be compassionate, to practice self-care, to practice self-love. Do not be a bully to your family, to your workplace, or to yourself. Let's set some healthy, realistic expectations. Let's make sure we're not just focusing on a project at work, but we're focused on ourselves as a project. What is it that is important to you? Allowing yourself the space and the opportunity to gift yourself with it, and then giving yourself the consistency and a space to follow through and make it happen. And as far as organizations, you gotta take care of your people. It's your responsibility. You have to. And only with that mindset will you then see some dedicated, committed employees that are there to work toward the common purpose of the organization, and they won't leave you. They'll stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll remain more engaged. I'm going to ask you one more question. What do you think about what would be if I were an employer and I'm like, oh, this really resonates with me. How do I make this information more readily available besides sending another email with a bunch of links in it? What should an employer do first to help educate their leadership and then their employees?
Well, the challenge is it's not just a one and done kind of thing. You know how you go to those trainings and it's like, oh, that sounds good. And then you go back and you don't focus on anything. So as you said, it's great to send out that email, but it has to be something that is become a part of the culture of the organization. Mm-hmm. So continuous processings that are in place, that are interwoven into everything, where perhaps at every staff meeting, you have a check-in to say, okay, what's one thing that you would like to focus on this week, and make everyone feel a connection to that. Maybe it's about helping leadership go through a coaching program, helping your staff go through an emotional intelligence program, helping the entire workplace environment understand that if we are able to connect our personal development to the professional success, it's a win-win. So all of those soft skills development are really key, not just the one and done, but on a consistent basis.
Good. And we're getting lots of comments, lots of love for you, Erica, and for me. But I'm just so excited and really pleased as pudding that you are here. I think this is conversation that needs to be had. I see one of my girlfriends is on. She's like my girlfriend, armchair psychologist, is watching. I won't tell y'all because she's the crypt keeper who she is. Y'all might try to go get all my secrets from her, but she's there, and I'm so incredibly thankful to all of you who've been able to chime in and participate, who just watched. It'll continue to be available if you want to watch it again. Again, if you want to reach out to Erica, I put her contact information here, and I'm sure that we will be hearing more from her in the future. I'd love to have you back because I know this stuff is just going to keep going, and we've got lots and lots to talk about. So I look forward to having you back soon. So Erica, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been so much fun.
Yes. All right, y'all. Until next time.